joining us for this East Hampton Library event with Dr. Dana Dragone. Dr. Dragone has done a number of programs for us that have been very useful, wonderful, well attended, pertaining to diet and exercise, as well as also we do once a month a moon circle. So if anyone's interested in zooming into that, by all means, please do. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Dana Dragone.
All right. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about medicinal mushrooms, which is one of my absolute favorite topics because, one, I love mushrooms in general. I think they're an amazing food source, and they're so versatile. And there's so many like amazing different qualities to mushrooms that really just, it's insane. So anyways, what are medicinal mushrooms? Basically, these are fungi in the form of extracts, powder, or like the whole mushroom that can be used for prevention. Sorry, there we go. Okay, for prevention, alleviation, or healing of multiple diseases and or in a balanced, healthy diet. So this is a definition from the Bioactive Food and Dietary Interventions for Arthritis and Related Inflammatory Diseases, which is just a book. But basically, mushrooms are so amazing in nature. They are like mini pharmaceutical factories. They have so many different constituents. They have so many different compounds in them. You know, there's vitamins, there's minerals, there's flavonoids, there's phenols. It's just the amount of stuff that are in a tiny little mushroom is amazing. So really cool thing to think about is that mushrooms have been used as medicine for thousands of years. And Hippocrates in 450 BCE actually used the amadou mushroom, which you can see, like there's a picture of it on this slide. And he used it as a potent anti-inflammatory agent and also to help cauterize wounds. So the story of mushrooms is pretty interesting because like when you think about it, there hasn't been much talk about mushrooms until recently. And the reason for that is there's a lot of fear around mushrooms. But what they can do for us is really, truly amazing. And they've been used for so long. I don't know if any of you have heard of Otzi, the Iceman. He lived about 5,300 years ago. And he was this well-preserved man that they found in ice. And they were able to see like what he had on him, what people that long ago looked like, all this cool stuff. And he actually had a leather pouch, and in it, he had some minimal like tools, but he also had an amadou mushroom, which is really, really cool. It's one of these, they can, when they grow in birch, they're called a Birch Polypore. And it was literally in his pouch that helped him survive in the Alps of northern Italy. So these mushrooms, people, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago knew the benefits of them, which is amazing. Another like history part of mushrooms is that the first peoples of North America used puffball mushrooms as wound healers, and they've been used in general. Mushrooms have been used by so many different cultures, whether it's Chinese culture, whether it's Native American culture, whether it's like the hunter-gatherers going way, way back. All of them have used mushrooms, and modern science is now really looking into that and seeing like what was it about these mushrooms that made people use them, like what are the properties, why were they used, you know, and for various different reasons, but mostly medicinal, and how can we use them now to help us. So mushrooms have long been seen as dangerous, and that's why we have like a lot of this fear. There's different cultures that are more open to eating different types of mushrooms and going out and foraging mushrooms. But for the most part, Americans tend to be a little bit more afraid. If you've ever, you know, seen a mushroom growing in your yard and your parents were like, don't eat that, like, no. It's because mushrooms do have components that can be dangerous. You know, some can feed you, some can heal you, some can literally kill you. So it's important to know which ones you're eating so that you don't die. And that's why this like fear came about. That was like, well, if you just never eat any of them, you'll never die from them. And that's that. But there are thousands of different mushrooms. Scientists don't even think they've discovered all the different types of mushrooms that are out there. So, you know, saying that they're all bad really takes out this huge chunk of them that are medicinal and that can really benefit us. The idea that it's safer to avoid them caused a lot of fear, and it also caused a gap in the research, which is really important to be aware of, is that this is not new stuff. Like I said, they have been used for thousands of years, but since research has become popular, since research has developed, there wasn't a lot of look into fungi because they were seen as a little bit taboo due to their psychedelic components, some of them, and then a little bit dangerous because, you know, they could kill you. So why look into it? Why put our research there when people aren't even eating them anyways? The whole war on drugs also really pushed down any type of mushroom research because there was like some big scientists like Timothy Leary and some people who really took mushrooms to the extreme or on like the psychedelic side, and other scientists who wanted to study like medicinal mushrooms for the purpose of antibiotics and treating gut health and cancer were kind of looked at like, you're looking at mushrooms like, oh, don't go that way. That's like pseudoscience. People are going to think you're crazy. Like you're going to get roped up into the whole psychedelic aspect of it. So I really stopped a lot of the research, which was unfortunate, but now we're getting back into it and we're finding out some really amazing things. So today, or what makes a mushroom medicinal in the first place? All right. So the relationship between mushrooms and microbes plays a role. This is really interesting if you're interested in like the science side of things, but basically mushrooms have evolved just like most plants to survive their own predators. And what happens is they produce these chemicals that help them survive in the wild. And then these chemicals can be used by humans to help fight against diseases and kill pathogens. So the same things that are attacking fungi in the wild, think whether it's like specific strains of bacteria, viruses, yeast, parasites, whatever it is, those are going to be detrimental to our health as well. So if a mushroom can fight them off, what's going on in this mushroom? How can we use that so that we can now fight them off? And it was an evolutionary advantage for humans to co-evolve with our environment. Before we had pharmaceuticals, we had to use the plants, we had to use the fungi in order to survive diseases. We had to be able to use what was around us before we had these labs that could isolate this very specific compounds, et cetera, et cetera. So really like developing in our body receptors for mushrooms was evolutionary beneficial for us. And what mushrooms have, one specific component is called a beta glucan. And these, we actually have receptors for these, and they help to stimulate our immune system. So we're going to go through, I believe it's 10 different mushrooms today that have medicinal benefits. And you're going to see a lot of the benefits are all the same. And yes, it's a little bit repetitive, but it's really interesting because it just goes to show that we've developed this whole system in our immune system that actually responds to us eating mushrooms in a beneficial way. And just another fun fact about mushrooms, because I do love them. The largest known organism on Earth is actually the mycelial mat, the mycelial network that's underground of the honey mushroom, which is pretty cool. It's in Eastern Oregon. It's 890 hectares, and it's more than 2,000 years old. Because mycelium, which is like think of like the roots of a mushroom, for lack of a better term, that can survive for centuries. And the mushroom that we see growing is actually the fruiting body of that mycelium. So if you have a mushroom in your yard and you want to go dig around it, you'll probably find these like white hair-like structures underneath it. That is the mycelium, which scientists are now finding is really useful for lots of things. They're making houses out of the mycelium. They're making so many different things out of it, like sustainable packaging, lots of really cool stuff that's all environmentally friendly out of this mushroom mycelium, because it also reproduces like wildfire and is very sustainable and can be made in a very short amount of time. Okay, so the mushrooms that we're going to talk about today are lion's mane, cordyceps, Miaki, a birch polypore, reishi, chaga, shiitake, oyster mushrooms, turkey tail, and morels. Most of these you can eat, well, they're all edible, as in the sense of they're not going to poison you. Some of them you don't necessarily want to eat because they don't taste that good, but we'll talk about that in a second. So the first one we're going to talk about is lion's mane. And I love this mushroom. You can see it looks a little funky. It kind of looks like hairy, but it's really well known for its brain boosting benefits. And what it does is it increases the production of nerve growth factor and myelin. So nerve growth factor and myelin are crucial for brain structure and brain function. The myelin, you might have heard the myelin sheath. It actually coats your neurons and helps signals go through them a lot faster. And when that wears away, you get things like multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, overall cognitive decline. So really important for your brain function. It's great to, incorporate into your diet. And it also has a very similar mouthfeel to lobster. So people have used this mushroom in place of lobster in recipes and say that it's very similar. It also boosts your brain function. So again, it's been shown to increase cognition and improve memory. It can also help increase your concentration. So if you're someone who is in school, you're studying for exams, or you've got tests coming up, whatever it is, lion's mane would be a really good choice for that. It can also help to enhance your mood because it is so good for the brain. It can help reduce anxiety and some irritability, and it protects against ulcers in the GI tract. So it's been shown to help prevent the growth of H. pylori, which is a bacteria that causes stomach ulcers. And it can help reduce the risk of alcohol-induced stomach ulcers. So if you're someone who drinks a lot and you've been told that you're wearing away at your stomach lining, this would be a really good mushroom for you to take. And it can help with like what acid lowering drugs typically do to help prevent ulcers. It's typically damaging. You don't want to be on those things like omeprazole, Prozac, those types of drugs for a long time. And lion's mane can be used to have the same effects, but without all the negative side effects, which is pretty cool. And just a little personal story, when I was camping in Maine a few years ago, I found some lion's mane growing on a tree, and I was like the happiest person alive. I actually grilled it up that night and it was delicious. But you can find it growing around the Northeast. It's very distinct. There's no lookalikes. So if you are out in the wild and you do see it, don't be afraid to take a little bit and try it at home. Okay. So next we've got Cordyceps, and this fungi is actually parasitic. It grows on insects in the wild. So if you've ever watched like the Blue Planet or whatever, where the fungi takes over the caterpillar's body and like grows a little spout out of its head, that's basically this mushroom. And you can see this middle picture. You guys can see that. They look like caterpillars, and that's because it literally was grown out of a caterpillar. When these are produced in a lab, which is typically if you're buying any type of cordyceps supplements or if you're buying them in the store, they're probably lab produced. They're vegan because they're grown on a different substrate. They're not actually grown from an insect. You can see how they look very different when they're grown from a substrate. And it's actually the wild versus the one grown in a lab is a little bit different of a species, but the medicinal value is similar. Wild always is going to have more beneficial effects, but they're pretty comparable in the sense they do the same things. It's just not as potent if it's been grown in a lab. So cordyceps are heart healthy. They can help to reduce cholesterol and triglycerides while also improving the circulation. They're anti-inflammatory. They can reduce pain and autoimmune responses and protect against oxidative damage to cells, which helps to reduce aging. They also help to improve fertility and performance, which is great. So they're believed to improve the sperm's mobility and enhance sexual activity. And in women, they can actually rejuvenate the uterus and support an active libido. They are anti-cancer. Most of the mushrooms that we're talking about today are, because they activate the immune system and they activate the specific cells that counteract cancer cells and prevent them from spreading. And they can help you reduce fatigue. These mushrooms increase ATP production, which if you remember from like high school biology, your cells run off ATP. That is the energy that they use. So this increases ATP. and helps reduce any symptoms of like weakness, fatigue. It's also really good for athletes, especially endurance athletes. When if you were to purchase these at home, you'll probably find like a lot of like coffee supplements, or like hot chocolate, like morning drinks, maybe a matcha drink mixes that have cordyceps powder in it. Next, we have Miaki, and this is probably my favorite to just eat normally because one, it tastes amazing. It's really easy to cook. You can literally just put it in a pan with some salt and pepper, and it has this really rich, like nutty, just delicious taste. But it's also an adaptogen. And an adaptogen is something that helps the body fight against any type of stress, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it is. And it helps to balance the systems of the body. So whenever there's an imbalance, whether it's high or low, an adaptogen is going to come in and help get that back to normal. And my favorite thing to do is make Miaki mushroom tacos. They are delicious because it does kind of have like a little bit of a meatier taste to it. But anyways, these mushrooms are anti-cancer. They can help fight the growth and reproduction of cancerous cells and inhibit tumor growth. They can also help combat some of the side effects of chemotherapy. So if you have cancer, it's always good to talk to like a regular medical doctor, an oncologist, figure out a good plan. But these types of things like the mushrooms are never bad to incorporate with, because they'll attack the cancer. They'll also help remediate some side effects. Heart healthy as well, so they can help lower cholesterol levels. They've been shown to increase fatty acids and provide energy, and also modulate blood pressure. And eating these mushrooms is overall really good for artery health. And lastly, they're anti-diabetic. So they have this positive effect on blood sugar that really helps to regulate the blood sugar so you don't have these spikes and these low dips. And it may be a potential way to treat diabetes in humans. Scientists are researching this, looking at compounds in the Miaki mushroom to see, whether or not they can isolate it and whether it turns into a medicine or a supplement, whatever it is, to be able to help with diabetes. Next, we've got the Birch Polypore. So this is the one that we were talking about, that like Amadou mushroom. And despite having like these super powerful healing benefits, it's rarely eaten, because if you were to see this on the tree, it's very hard. It almost looks like a hoof of an animal and like kind of feels like that. Like it's very, very hard, and it's bitter. It has this like earthy taste and rubbery texture. You really wouldn't want to like chop it up and add it to a stew or tacos or whatever it is. But it is a hiker's med kit. So if you are hiking, if you are out in the wild, if you are camping and you come across one of these mushrooms, take it with you. It really can be a savior. It has antiseptic properties. So if you get a wound, you can grind this up and put it on your wound. It will help to heal it. It will help to clean it, keep it from getting infected, but it also can prevent scarring. So it makes a really nice solve. If you have a wound and you don't want it to scar, you can put this like a paste of this mushroom on your wound. It also has the ability to help stop bleeding. So for example, if you're hiking or if you're camping, you're going to chop wood and you nick yourself with like the axe or whatever it is, this would be a great mushroom to, again, grind up into like a little bit of a paste using like a rock and put it on the wound. It'll stop the bleeding, keep it clean, and help it to heal. Next, it's really good for gut health. So typically, if you're going to use it internally, we would recommend putting it in a tea, making a tincture, or making like some sort of powder of it, because again, it's not that great to just cook up and eat. It doesn't taste very good. But it's long been used as an herbal remedy for gastrointestinal disorders, and it's a mild laxative, so it helps to promote healthy elimination. It has potent anti-inflammatory properties, which is likely what's going on here with this gut health. If it's reducing the inflammation, it's going to help heal any type of GI disorder. And it's a prebiotic, which helps to feed healthy gut microbiota. It does have a nickname. It's called the razor's drop because hunters would actually use it to help sharpen their knives or their razors. So you can imagine how hard it is if they're literally sharpening their knife on it. But it does have so many uses if you're out in the wild. And the medicinal uses of this can be traced back to the Bronze Age. Like this has been used ancient Egyptians. It's been used for so long. It's anti-cancer as well. So again, these mushrooms contain substances to help prevent the production of cancer cells, and they are very effective against skin, colon, and prostate cancers in particular. The ancient Egyptians actually believed that the tea from this mushroom was supposed to, like, drinking it would give them immortality. So you can see it definitely had a lot of medicinal benefits for them to believe that it helped to make people immortal. But yeah, really good to use in the wild if you come across one. Next is reishi. You might have heard of this one before. It's pretty popular now. Another name for it is lingzi. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But reishi is really powerful immune booster. Again, it boosts the function of white blood cells to help fight infections and help fight cancer. It can kill cancer cells, and also it helps to reduce prostate cancer because it does have an effect on testosterone. It can also be used to help fight fatigue and depression. There was a study where they took reishi. There was multiple studies, but the result of all of them was between 4 and 8 weeks of taking reishi was shown to help reduce fatigue and improve overall quality of life. It's also been reported to help reduce anxiety and boost moods, especially in patients recovering from cancer treatment. It is heart healthy as well. So again, it can increase the HDL cholesterol, which is your good cholesterol, and help to lower your triglycerides. Next, we've got chaga. Chaga is really cool. You can see it doesn't look like a mushroom. It looks like a chunk of something, but it has a positive effect on blood sugar. It is an anti-diabetic, and it helps to reduce elevated blood sugars. Excuse me. It can also help reduce inflammation in the pancreas, which is, what kind of goes awry when you have diabetes. So it helps to reduce that inflammation and get it functioning a little bit more normally. Again, anti-cancer. Chaga is very well known for its anti-cancer properties. It can help prevent the growth of tumors and reduce the size of tumors. It's really effective against lung cancer as well. And again, an immune boost to help fight inflammation, fight off harmful bacteria and viruses, stimulating the white blood cells, all the good things. It also prevents the production of harmful cytokines, which can trigger things like inflammation. Cytokines are even responsible for like anxiety and just feeling like super tired when you're sick. Mucus development. Cytokines can really affect the whole slew of symptoms that you express, and chaga is able to reduce the harmful ones. Fresh chaga actually can't be used. Well, typically you want to dry the chaga before you use it. And in order to do this, you put it in an oven for about 24 hours at like a low temperature, like 110 or so degrees. But once it's dried, you can use it to make tea. You can even grate it on different foods or pulverize it into a powder. Mainly, we see it as a tea. There used to be a company called Long Island Chaga, I think. But I don't think they're around anymore. And they made the chaga tea. They were in farmers markets. They were in certain stores around here. But really, you just, in like a crock pot, put 1 or 2 of these chaga chunks in, fill it up with water, let it cook for 24 hours. And then you have this tea. And it tastes very similar to iced tea. You can sweeten it with like lemon or honey or whatever your preferred sweetener is. And you drink it. And it's very beneficial for your health. It's great with cancer, like I said, but that's typically the way to get chaga into your diet is through the tea. And once you have those chunks, you can keep them in the freezer, and they can last up to 2 years, and you can keep making tea until it starts to get very faded and very watery. That's when you know the chaga is kind of used up. But you can literally buy these chunks and make your own chaga tea, for months at a time. Next, we've got shiitake, and shiitake has this like unique umami flavor that is used in a lot of Asian cuisines and Asian cultures. Around 83% of shiitake are actually grown in Japan, but you know, there are some that are produced in the US and Canada and China as well. They contain a lot of the same amino acids as meat. So you'll see them in things like a ramen broth or a pho type of like broth. It does add a really delicious flavor component, but it also has the good proteins that you want that most people don't get if they don't eat meat. It is heart healthy, and it's been used in Chinese medicine to increase longevity and improve circulation. It can also help to reduce cholesterol and reduce blood pressure. It's an immune booster, so they have this potent anti-inflammatory properties that we've kind of seen with all the other mushrooms as well, but it really helps to improve immune system markers. So reducing inflammation, slow age-related decline in immune function, and really just, you know, boost your health. It's also anti-cancer, so these mushrooms help fight cancer by activating the immune system. In Chinese medicine, they're used alongside chemotherapy and other treatments to help improve the quality of life in those with gastric cancer. Next, we've got oyster mushrooms. My photo didn't come up. Sorry, guys. But oyster mushrooms are really cool. There's actually like 40 different types of oyster mushrooms. There's like pink ones, there's blue ones, there's the white ones. They're very cool and they're very easy to grow. You can grow a lot of these like lion's mane, oyster mushrooms, even shiitake at your house. I've done it before. There are some companies that have like kits that you can literally put it on your counter and grow them, and it's pretty cool. But these are heart healthy, and consuming them can help prevent the oxidation of LDL, which is that bad cholesterol. And when it gets oxidized, that's when it really causes a lot of problems and forms plaque. It also helps to regulate blood pressure and decrease total cholesterol and triglycerides. It's an antioxidant, and it can help reduce cellular damage in the body and reduce any inflammation. It's also anti-diabetic. So again, reducing those blood sugars. It's also shown to reduce hemoglobin A1C, which is just another marker for your blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetics. And they're immune boosters. So these mushrooms have antiviral and antibacterial effects, and they can boost the immune system to help you fight against infections. Now you have turkey tail. This grows around here a ton. You'll be able to see this. You can kind of spot it because it has these like different colors. You can see there's like red and yellow and blue and kind of like a green color. That's what it's known for. It's got all of these phenols and flavonoids that kind of help with these striking colors that are on it. But it is an antioxidant. It's very high in antioxidants and prevents oxidative stress and inflammation. It also is an immune booster. So the compounds in these mushrooms promote immunity to toxins and help to regulate the immune response. They also activate macrophages, which are your white blood cells that kind of go around and eat any type of bacteria or pathogen or virus. So it helps prevent us against that, and it can be beneficial against cancer. And lastly, it's good for gut health because it is a prebiotic and it nourishes the good bacteria in the GI tract, things like bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, and it helps to reduce any harmful bacteria. There's also some like minimal research that suggests it might be able to be used against HPV and to help improve athletic performance. And there is one mouse study that showed that it might help improve insulin resistance as well. But very beautiful mushroom, and it's very common to see out here. It's not the softest. Again, I wouldn't like pick this one and go to cook it up on my stove. I'd probably turn it into some type of powder or tincture because it doesn't have that great of a texture or taste. And our last mushroom, I think this is our last one, yes, are the morels. So a morel mushroom is very coveted in culinary aspects. They have this like incredible taste. They're very expensive. If you go to the farmer's market, it's they're like $50 for a kilogram or something. It's crazy. They're very expensive mushrooms. But besides being delicious, they are liver protective, and they've been shown to help protect against this toxin called carbon tetrachloride, which scientists believe is actually a huge factor in our health, and it really poisons our liver, and most people are exposed to it. And then when we drink alcohol, this toxin that's in our liver actually interacts with the alcohol to make an even worse effect on our liver. So eating morels is supposed to help prevent that reaction and reduce carbon tetrachloride, which helps our not only our liver but also the kidney and the nervous systems, because that carbon tetrachloride affects those as well. It is an antioxidant. Morel mushrooms contain a high level of antioxidants that protect your body from free radicals and can help reduce the risk of chronic diseases. And then it is a good source of vitamin D. So most mushrooms, pretty much all mushrooms, are a good source of vitamin D, but morels contain some of the highest amounts of vitamin D in all the edible mushrooms. So vitamin D is really important. I'm sure most of you have heard about it before, but if we live in northern climates, we typically are low during the winter months because the sun is not shining as strongly. We're not outside as much. Our skin is not exposed to the sun's rays. So we are not able to produce as much vitamin D internally. And I recommend for a majority of my patients, get your vitamin D levels checked. If you're low, make sure you're substituting, supplementing during the winter months especially, and during the summer months trying to get outside as much as you can. But it's important for your immune system. It's important for your brain. It's also really important for bone growth. To have strong bones, you need to have vitamin D. So this is a great source of that. And if you can find these in the wild, you're, rich as rich can be. This is like the best thing to find ever. They're so delicious. It's awesome. So what about the mushrooms in the grocery store? Because I just went through 10 different mushrooms. None of them were the ones that you typically see in the grocery store. Sometimes we can find like the gourmet mushroom blend that will have some Miaki, it will have some oyster, it will probably have some Shiitake as well. But other than that, you don't really see lion's mane very often unless you're at like a farmer's market. Especially in the US, we don't see some of these other options. And it's not to say that the mushrooms in the grocery store aren't good for you. They're just not considered medicinal. So the baby bellas, the portobello mushroom caps, and the white button mushrooms are actually all the same type of mushroom. Even though they have different names, they're the same like species of mushroom. They're just in different stages of development. So they're not considered medicinal, but they do have, nutritional benefits. They're a really good source of fiber. They're a source of vitamins and minerals, like we talked about, the vitamin D. They have some protein in there. And they're a good, like, low-calorie food. They're a fat-free food, a cholesterol-free food. So they do have their benefits. And what's been shown in the research is that eating mushrooms regularly, whether it be baby bellas, portobello caps, white button mushrooms, the oysters, the lion's mane, the shiitake, the Miaki, whatever it is, eating mushrooms regularly helps to prevent brain atrophy, which is just like your brain shrinking as you get older and not functioning as properly. And it can help reduce your risk of Parkinson's disease. And whether the mushroom is considered medicinal or just edible, mushrooms are a great choice to incorporate into your diet. So if you don't already eat mushrooms, I highly recommend you do. But if you are new to them, try it out. They do have, typically people who say they don't like mushrooms, I tell them to try portobello mushroom caps, marinate it in your favorite steak seasoning, throw it on the grill, and see what it tastes like, because it tastes very meaty. And most people who, are afraid to eat mushrooms will try that, and it opens up their palate to trying mushrooms. But going back to the medicinal mushrooms real quick, how do we use them? How are we supposed to know what we're supposed to do with them? And basically, some of them can be found around your home. Like you can literally go outside in the woods. You can pick some of the mushrooms as long as you know that's exactly what it is. If you're not familiar with it, do not pick it, do not eat it. But if you know what it is, for example, out here we have a lot of chicken in the woods. It's a very distinct orange mushroom. It does not have any gills on the bottom side. It looks like a sponge. There's no other lookalikes that look like that that are sponge-like. There is a lookalike that has gills, but you know it's not the right one because it has gills. You can go and pick that and cook it and eat it. So anyways, going outside, looking around, looking at your grocery store, seeing what options are there, but also going to your farmers markets, because a lot of farmers markets now are starting to get on this mushroom kick, and you're seeing things like the lion's mane, and you're seeing all the different types of oysters, whether it's blue, pink, white, yellow, whatever it is, and going and just getting a little bit and experimenting. They can be cooked, and others can be consumed as a supplement or taken as a tincture. So when I was talking with Stephen before we started this call was that, or this talk was that there's so many products now that have mushrooms in them. So you'll see like mushroom coffee, mushroom hot chocolate, mushroom chocolate bars, mushroom in the iced teas at the store. There's kombucha with mushrooms in it. There's it's seriously endless. There's so many things that are adding mushrooms into their food products. There's now like protein bars that have, cordyceps, or protein bars with lion's mane, all these different things. So if you're someone who's like, I'm probably not going to go outside and find some, or I'm not going to go to the farmer's market and get some from there because I don't really know how to cook it, or I don't really like mushrooms, try using them in ways where you're not going to taste the actual mushroom, but you're still going to get the benefits, whether that's as a supplement, as a tincture, which a tincture is just like a liquid version of a supplement pretty much, or in those food products. And what I want to share with you guys is just a few of my favorite brands for people who are really interested in getting these benefits but don't have access to the actual mushroom themselves, or are just not going to go that route. These are some really great brands that are some of my favorites that I use and that I've recommended to patients of mine. The first one being Host Defense. This is by this guy, Paul Stamets, and he's like a huge mushroom fanatic. Is so knowledgeable about all these different medicinal mushrooms, but his company makes all these different products, whether it's, he has a lot of supplements. So he's got like a brain version. He's got like a immune defense one. He's got like a mood booster. He's got all these different supplements that have different combinations of mushrooms in like powdered form. That's just a supplement that you can take, every morning. Next is Four Sigmatic. This is one of my personally like absolute favorite brands. They were one of the first to really like start this whole mushroom trend. They make things like latte mixes. They make mushroom-based coffee. They make chocolate bars. They have like a chai tea, like a mushroom chai tea powder. Turmeric latte mushroom powder. They've got all the things, all the lattes, all the morning drinks you could think of. They've got this amazing hot chocolate as well. And they've got all different flavors that have different types of mushrooms. So for example, they have like a wake up and get going hot chocolate. And they also have like a nighttime soothing, relaxing hot chocolate that has different mushrooms based on those purposes, which is pretty cool. Next, if you are local to East Hampton or the East End of Long Island, there is a company called Open Minded Organics, and you'll find them at the farmers market. I think they have a store in Sag Harbor. I don't know if they still have it. They had a pop-up a few years ago. But you can go to their website. They make their own tinctures, and they also have fresh mushrooms at the farmers markets. So I always go to these guys. The mushrooms are great. And if you're curious about the benefits of them, they are so good about being like, this is the type of mushroom. This is what you can do with it. This is what it does for your health. They're great with that. So I do love their company. The next one is Om Mushroom. This is another like drink powder, protein powder kind of like mix company. They've got all different products, all really great. Add it to your smoothies. You can, make just like the coffee or the hot chocolate or whatever it is in the morning. But they use a lot of mushrooms. And then the last one is Mud Water. And this, you might have seen ads before for it. I feel like they are very well marketed, but it is a drink. It's like a morning drink, and it has all these mushroom benefits. And it's just a powder that you add hot water to, and it replaces your coffee. Not that coffee is like the worst thing for you, but a lot of the mushrooms have the benefit of getting that energy spike without getting that dip. Caffeine causes like a up and a down, whereas these mushrooms, when they work to increase your energy, it's just a nice, steady energy increase with no crash. So it does leave you feeling really good. Plus, there's all the other benefits like the cancer benefits and the brain boosting benefits and the antioxidants and the anti-inflammatory. So it is really worth looking into and incorporating these into your diet. But yeah, mushrooms are awesome. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about it. I love them. And the cool thing is that there's just so much more research to be done and so many more studies that are being conducted to show like how mushrooms not only can benefit our health, but also benefit the health of the planet. For example, oyster mushrooms are being used to actually clean up oil spills because they can feed off the oil and grow. And, you know, that's really sustainable. Then those mushrooms can be used for something else down the line. And then on the more medicinal side of things is that mushrooms produce like metabolites of certain things. So if you inject a mushroom with a specific bacteria, it's actually going to sweat out an antidote that is going to kill that bacteria because, you know, the mushroom wants to survive and they're very good at producing these like specific toxins. So what scientists are finding is they're able to use the sweat of the mushroom that has this like antibiotic component to it, and they're using it to turn, you know, medicine to develop new medicines and all that good stuff, which is pretty cool. So does anyone have any questions about mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, how to eat them, anything like that?
We have, there's a question in the chat. Are there specific books you'd recommend to ID these mushrooms and be clear on where to find them and what type of environment?
Yes, give me 1 second because I have the book right here. I forgot to bring this over with me. Okay, so this book is called Mushroom Hunter. I really like this one because it has a ton of pictures. You can go through mushroom books and read and read and read, but if you can't really see it, it's very hard to go, okay, so this says it has gills and looks this spot. Like it's really hard to see it in your mind if you're not actually seeing it in a picture. So I love this book. It tells you all about the different growing seasons. One of the authors of this book, I studied some mushrooms with him. I went on an educational mushroom weekend retreat. I don't know. But we got to forage for mushrooms, learn how to identify mushrooms. And then at night we were able to cook what we found, the ones that were edible, which was pretty cool. So this book does tell you, let's see if I can turn to a good page. Yeah, for example, here's the chicken mushroom that I was talking about. This grows out here. If you find it, and you can see that it looks like a sponge, there's no like gills underneath. I'm actually going to, let me stop screen sharing so you guys can see this. There we go. Okay. So you can see like it doesn't have any gills. Like normal mushrooms have gills. This doesn't. It has pores. And if you find this, you can eat this. It tastes very much like chicken. I actually made some the other day because my boyfriend brought me home some of it that he found while he was driving home. And I just bread it and put it in the air fryer like a chicken nugget. But they're very good. And it just tells you all about the other ones. Like here's Hen of the Woods. This grows out here a lot too. This is another edible one. But it tells you how to identify it, what to look for. And then there's also a section on poisonous mushrooms. So you can go through and see what the difference is and look through, you know, making sure that you're not consuming anything poisonous. Typically, what I was told, what I learned is if it's a little brown mushroom, do not eat it because there are so many different little brown mushrooms, a lot of them being poisonous. Just don't eat it.
Is that the Langdon Cook book, The Mushroom Hunters?
It is Gary Linkoff. I'll put
Gary,
the,
okay.
yeah, I will put this on there. Do you guys have it at the library?
I have I have The Mushroom Hunters on the Trail of an Underground America by Langdon Cook. And then I have Mushroom Hunters Field Guide by Alexander H. Smith, which is, but I definitely would add another title, sure. To
Yeah,
complete, okay, Gary Linkoff.
yeah, this one's great with the photos. I have the revised copy because it was updated.
Okay.
But what was the other question? Research and preserving indigenous knowledge regarding working on fungi. That's a good question. I'm honestly not sure exactly there's a lot of different labs doing this research. I know that there's I don't know where they're based out of, but when I went on my educational retreat, for lack of a better term of what to call it, one of the speakers there was talking about his company. I just do not remember it, but they are using the mycelium to make bricks and make sustainable housing and build these houses for people in like undeveloped countries that need that help, which was pretty cool to learn about. And then often the type of cooking can alter nutrition factor. So yes, when you're cooking mushrooms, I always say less is more. You need to cook them. Mushrooms absolutely have to be cooked. You do not want to eat them raw. They will really bother your stomach. There are compounds in them that's actually the same compound as like the outer shell of a shrimp that we cannot break down in our GI tract. So it'll cause a lot of pain, a lot of indigestion. You can even get sick if you don't cook your mushrooms, so always cook them. But I like to do just a little bit of oil or whatever I'm using. Usually it's olive oil and a tiny bit of salt and pepper. Some people, the salt thing is a debate between mushroom enthusiasts. Like, do you need salt? Do you not need salt? I like to add a little bit of salt. But for the most part, less is more. You can jazz them up however you want. I think the taste of them is good. A good company for extracts. Let's see. I do Open-Minded Organics does have extracts. That's kind of where I usually buy from. I'm not a super big extract person, I'll be honest. I have a tincture that I made myself. And that's pretty much all the ones that I use besides the Open-Minded Organics. I'm sorry, I don't have a better recommendation for that. But they're great. And I think Open-Minded Organics has a website. But they're at the farmers markets too, if you ever have time to check them out. The guy, Dan, who runs it, is very accommodating, very knowledgeable. He'd be able to point you in the right direction if he doesn't have something that you're looking for.
There's also Neutralite is good too. They've been around like forever.
Okay.
Neutralite's vitamin D has there's portobello mushrooms, and there's a white, it's not the lion's mane, I can't think of what you call it, but there's two mushrooms that they use in that vitamin D, and that's part of their regiment, and it's very good. I mean, I've taken 2,000 units in the morning on that, and it's, you know, I think Neutralite's been around since the early 50s.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
they're still making, you know, little bottles with 90 vitamin Ds in them with mushroom compounds. But does anyone have any other questions? If you'd like, you can unmute, or if you'd like to type it in the chat, by all means, you're welcome to do so.
I will say that the Host Defense by Paul Stamets, they do have tincture versions. I think of everything that they have supplement versions of, like pill versions.
What about powders?
They have powders as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you recommend as far as powders?
As in like which company or what type of mushrooms?
No. What company that? Yeah, I think the thing is you just kind of have to, like you said, because they mix a lot of other things with it, so you kind of have to
Yeah.
If you know what your problem is, you've got to kind of.
Yeah, I do. I am a big proponent of that host defense brand just because Paul Stamets is seriously like the leader in mushroom research. Like he's like the big guy. Whenever you think mushrooms, you think Paul Stamets. So his company does a really good job. But there's also like any of like the mud water, the Four Sigmatic, and what was that other one? The Ohm. They all of their stuff is powdered form. It's meant to be like a drink, but you know, the Four Sigmatic, I know they have a couple of products that are not like flavored. It's more of like a smoothie additive that's just a bunch of mushrooms, different types for different things. So any of those are good. The company,
Okay.
I can pull up that slide again if you guys want, with the companies, because these are the ones that I use, that are reputable brands that I like. Let's see. Let me see if I can get it back up. There we go. Okay. I'll leave that up for you guys. But my top three are like, they go in order from my favorite to my, I wouldn't say least favorite. They're all my favorites, but the one that I recommend first over everything is Host Defense because it's a great, great brand. There's so much research done on their products, that go into their products and crafting them, you know, very specifically for their purposes. And then Four Sigmatic is more food-based, less supplement-based. Still great. And Open Minded Organics is a local one that they do a really good job. Does anyone else have any questions? Am I missing anything? Let's see. Yes, but yes, Doug, I agree with that. I am always looking at like whether a company is funding its own research. But what I meant by that is like that company does a ton of like outside research on mushrooms in general and crafts its compounds and its extracts and its supplements based off of the research that's been done on just mushrooms in general. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Hi. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they are a really, really great brand that you can read all about too. And he's published so many books just on mushrooms in general that have nothing to do with his brand. He's very
Okay. And that's Paul Stamets.
Yes, and I think
Okay.
I believe he has a really good podcast too.
Okay.
He's a cool guy. I like him.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions?
How do you spell his Paul's last name?
I will type it in here. No, hold on. My computer is freaking out. I believe it's like this.
Oh, there. Wait a minute.
You guys
Shoot.
S-T-A.
Okay,
Yeah,
next.
yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, so many great benefits to it. That mushrooms are just really like, they're mind-blowing when you start learning about all that they do. They are mind-blowing. They're very cool. Cool. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or just anything? You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for showing up. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed this as much as I did.
Okay, thank you.
I thank
Thank
I
you.
thank everyone for zooming in, and thank you, Dr. Dragone, for this spectacular presentation. Learned a lot about the various different types of mushrooms, and I know I'll definitely continue using them in my cooking when I make some chicken franchise and put some mushrooms on top of that. I mean, mushrooms go great with everything. Wild rice, can't beat it.
Yep, exactly.
Thank-
I will say too, just real quick, because you made me think of this. If you are really interested in getting some of the more obscure mushrooms like Shiitake and Miaki, there is another company called Misfits Market, and it's just like a food delivery service. But you can pick like every week, every other week, once a month, whatever it is, to get like a box. And they do have a lot of good mushroom options on there. They have way more than what we, for those of you that are on the east end of Long Island, have in the store. And that's typically where I order mine from. But any good companies who sell mushroom spawn? Not off the top of my head. The ones that I've grown, I actually purchased from the guy that I did this thing with, this retreat with, because they had them there. But there are a ton of companies. The other day I even saw like a box at Home Goods. It was like mushroom, like ready to go, poke the hole, add the water, and it'll grow at Home Goods. So just be on the lookout. You can also look online. There's a lot of companies that are organically grown. They'll just send you the box, and you really are just cutting like a hole and putting some water and putting it on your countertop for it to grow out. But there's some good companies online, and you might even be able to, I don't know if Open Minded Organics does it, but they might sell boxes like locally that are ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week and is staying healthy and enjoying everything. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.